The future of work and leadership always starts with us. Welcome to the Dr. Ginny Show. Let's dive in. Welcome back to the Dr. Ginny Show. Today, our honored guest is Lisa Parda. She is the author of the upcoming book, My Love Language is Food, and she's also a weekly radio show host and real estate broker who specializes in candid conversations on food, wellness, and finding joy in the messy middle. And that's where we're going to spend most of our time today. Lisa, welcome to the Dr. Ginny Show.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ginny. I'm honored. Thank you for having me.
So Lisa, let's start at the top. Briefly, tell us about your journey and what inspired you to do what you're doing today.
So I will tell you that I started out having a very solid idea of what I would do for myself for my career. I wanted to be an air traffic controller. And the first half of my life trying that. And I did everything I was supposed to do. However, they were not offering the test while I was young enough to take the test to become an air traffic controller. So I had what you would call a disruptive change to my life, where I decided if I wasn't going to do the love of my life, I was going to do something that allowed me to make money.
Why not?
And my second love, I always thought that I would be involved in real estate because my family had been involved in real estate. They were landlords. And I had seen that and it didn't look foreign. And I felt like everybody needs a great place to live. So I thought, okay, I'm going to get into real estate. So at 30, I changed careers. I had dabbled a little bit in corporate America, but it wasn't totally for me. There was a lot of disruptive change in there as well. So then I got into real estate. And so I've been doing real estate ever since. And I really got myself into every single nook and cranny of real estate. So not only did I help people buy and sell, but I focused heavily on income generating real estate. So how to develop wealth through real estate. And then I found that I was really good at identifying value and making value. So then I took on the property management and asset management role.
Right.
And so I spent about 20 years doing that. And during COVID, I sort of got burnt out. The supply chain issues, you're renovating an 18-unit apartment building and you have no refrigerator. You have no stoves, the windows didn't come in. And so I was finding that I had lost the joy in it. And every time you go through these sort of like episodes or seasons, I try to establish, do I not love real estate anymore? Or do I not love this piece of real estate anymore? And so I do love real estate. It's in my bones. I love real estate. Foundationally, I'm a very Maslow's hierarchy of needs type of person. And I feel like our lives can't thrive if we don't have a good foundation in where you live. The environment that you live in is it's the foundation that, for me, everything else is built on.
Right.
And so I said, I'm going to keep real estate because I love it. I understand value. I have all of this breadth of expertise, and I just don't have to do every single piece of it. So I'm going to stick in the brokerage by helping people identify value, help buy, sell, help them with their growth strategies and their wealth strategies. But I'm going to leave the day-to-day management. I'm going to leave the rent collection and fixing stoves and changing light bulbs to somebody else.
That sounds like a smart idea. So I so appreciate what you share with us, because I know for so many of us and my clients who are usually in corporate, we are always thinking of alternative ways in which to diversify. So many of us have a portfolio of stocks and bonds, and we also have real estate. And one of the areas in which I have also grown is by buying real estate. And I have multiple properties that I bought, I lived, and then rented and kept them as I moved on to my next residence. And that happened, of course, over time, because at the beginning, I couldn't afford to buy a new place without selling the old place until I could. And it was because of the career I had in technology, financial services, that I had the luxury to be able to do that financially. So I see a lot of my clients are also going that route where they're diversifying their portfolios into real estate. And I can see how you could add so much value to them in that sense. Where are you located right now?
In New Hampshire.
So anybody who's listening, if you're in the New Hampshire area, and you need Lisa Parda, she's there for you. So Lisa, let's go into, right now, we want to talk about the messy middle. And one of the reasons why I want to have you on the show is because many of us at this stage in our life and careers, some of us are empty nesters, some of us have really created a successful career in that top of our career, I would say. Most people are like 10 to 15 years out from retirement. So this messy middle is where we find ourselves not maybe being as driven anymore in our careers, and we have passions that we want to follow personally, and we're still delivering, we're still leading our teams, we're still invested in our businesses, and simultaneously we're starting to think about the future and what that would look like when we do stop working. So when you talk about the messy middle, what is it about the messy middle that is attractive to you, and how do you define it?
So I will define the middle as anytime you have a transition.
Mm.
So I look at all of the times that I've had transitions, which I loved how you call them disruptive change, because sometimes transitions are us moving our goals forward, and other times it's something hits us and we have a life change.
Yes.
So I think of the messy middles as the transitions. You are not yet the thing you're trying to be, but you're moving off of the person you used to be or the career you used to be. So you're not in the new career, but you're not necessarily not in your old career. Same thing for your children might be in college, so they're out of your house, but you're still a parent.
Right.
I think of so many places, and I even think of people who are 24, 25, 26, they're out of college, but they're not yet in their career. So anytime you're in a transition, it's messy. It's ugly sometimes. It's this, what's happening here? You might take the wrong path for a minute. You might have to back up. But it's this, I think we think of adulthood as we have it all together. We have all the answers. And the older I get, the more I realize the less I know. The stuff I know. But then there's so much more stuff that I thought I knew, and it may be different than the way I had previously thought.
I agree with that. I was sharing this with the coaches. I have this community of coaches that I get together with now. And I was saying, the more I learn, the more I realize how much I need to learn, because there's so much more to learn all the time. But transitions, I love that, because no matter where we are in our careers and life, there are always new chapters. I call them chapters in your life. For me, my son is in college now. He's a freshman, and this is me being home. I am an empty nester. My dog Bruce and I are ruling this kingdom right now. And if it weren't for Bruce, I have to tell you, I would be pretty lonely right now. I have family, I have friends, of course, and I've had to adapt to this new chapter of my life. And thankfully, I have this business. I have Executive Bound, and I have clients that I serve, and companies that I partner with, and affiliates that work with me. And that makes every day purposeful and impactful. And what happens when all we do, however, is work, and we don't have anything else that's filling us up? And you and I were speaking earlier about you and your husband being motorcyclists. Like, you ride behind your husband's motorcycle, and how that is a whole genre of activities and social activity that can happen when you belong to a community like that. So when we talk about the messy middle, and I know you have a radio show, what are some of the areas of opportunities for midlife, people in midlife, professionals like us in midlife, to embrace other activities and opportunities that perhaps we haven't really looked into because we've been so focused on our careers? And that's where I really would love this episode to go into, exploring what's possible for us in addition to the work that we love so much.
So I'm going to say something that people don't like. So part of the problem with the messy middle is we are so good at what we do that you continue to do what you were good at. And so being in the messy middle, I'm going to use you for example. You're an empty nester, things that look different for you, dinner time, for example, and they're in middle school, there's one set of routine. When they're in high school, they're starting to fly the nest, so there's another set of routine. And then when they're off, you now have the empty nest syndrome. So things look different. Dinner looks different. How you spend your evening looks different. Also, what obligations are on your time? You have all of a sudden probably all of this free time, or what feels like time.
That I feel with work.
That you fill with work because you are good at your work. And so this is an opportunity. Now it may be that you held yourself back because you had responsibilities of motherhood. And now that you feel like the reins are off, you might be, on Secretariat going down the Kentucky Derby. You're like going on this race. However, you have something you love. You have something you can expand upon. Other people don't have that. Sometimes a transition or a messy middle or kids going off to college leaves people feeling like they've lost a purpose and they don't have work that can throw themselves into. So then it becomes this scary place. I see it a lot in friends who just don't let they're still so involved in their 25-year-old kid's life or their 30-year-old kid's life. Like they can't wait for the grandkid so they have a purpose again, for example. So it's about trying to find back when you were a little kid and you had interests before the world made you tamp down and focus on doing one thing. I like to paint. I like to draw. I like creative pursuits. I love clothing. I love fashion. I love pets. So there's, I could have went any direction. I could have started volunteering with pets. I could have went on the board, and helped. One of the organizations around me is called Operation Delta Dog, where they partner pets with people who have PTSD and military, and you train them. So I could have thrown myself into something like that, where I'm helping a group of people I feel very dedicated to. I could have started painting. I could have started doing a lot of things, but I am a business person and an entrepreneur, and I do like money. I do like spending money. I do like making money. And so, but one of the things in this creative process was I also like to make money. I like painting. I like drawing. I like fashion. I like all of these different things. So in my creative projects, I thought, what can I birth? What can I take from my head and make in real life that has an artistic component? And I've always loved reading, and I've always wanted to be a writer. I believe there's something special about a writer and a reader as a relationship. It's like they're planting seeds into your subconscious. Reading is very mind-opening. So I always thought as a young child that I would eventually write. So the first thing I thought was, I'm going to make a marketable book, which is a cookbook. Everyone can use more recipes in their daily life. What's for dinner? Here's a great idea. Another cookbook. I tried to make sure that it was beautiful photography.
I love that.
And so I put together this cookbook, and it's been a long time in the making. It was very difficult for me because it's a very technical endeavor, where I was thinking I was using a creative endeavor. But one of the things that I got to do was throw myself into something and become a beginner again.
I love that. And there's so much value in what you're sharing, because when you post the question, what was your passion as a kid? I think about, wait, I'm not going to go back to my childhood to think about what I enjoyed doing as a kid. And the reality is that I spent lots of time being creative. I used to sew clothes for my dolls. I didn't have Barbies because I couldn't afford Barbies, but I had dolls. And I would take clothing of mine that was probably too small for me, and I would use the fabric to make clothing for my doll. I would make beds out of shoe boxes, and I would make the whole bedroom sets and the curtains and the whole thing. Yeah, kids buy that today. I had to make it, but that was my creative outlet. And I used to knit a lot. I don't knit anymore. And you're right. What's stopping me from doing things like that? And obviously, many of our audience members may also claim that we don't have time to do it. The reality is that as we go through these transitions and we have the opportunity to choose how we're going to use the extra time that we have, instead of throwing ourselves into work and becoming workaholics, even to a larger extent, perhaps it's wise to start thinking about the activities and pursuits and crafts that we would want to do that would be productive for us and an outlet for our creativity. Like you said, reading and writing, which is something that I've also been pursuing since I began my business in 2017. I feel like I could let all the experiences that I've gained come out through the books that I put together. Healing Leadership in 2021, Fearless Women at Work in 2017. And now I'm working on my third book and a whole new series that's going to come out in the next 4 years. So I'm very excited about that.
So it does sound like you are using your creativity and your time, even though it is still more work related, you are practicing different skill sets.
I am. One of the things I discovered that I really want to share with everyone was when I was in the corporate world working full time, I had limited free time, especially my son was coming up through middle school, high school, etc. And so I was very limited in terms of my free time because of his activities. So sports, he was in multiple sports. And I also, when I started the business, was very intentional about how can I share what I have in my head about business, about leadership, about influence, communication. How can I share that with the world in the most effective way? And I thought, of course, I have to write a book. And that was the first one, Fearless Women at Work, where I packaged my 5 strategies that I share with all my programs and solutions that I put together, called the CARES, CARES. And that was very creative. And it was also business, and it was also a sales marketing tool. It was all of that. It was a way for me to get on stages and speak about what I discuss in the books. And so for the audience members, for you who are listening to us, what are you getting out of this conversation that Lisa and I are having? And how does the messy middle, what transition are you going through right now? How does that messy middle look for you today? And notice where you're gravitating toward. Are you throwing yourself more into work? Are you taking dance lessons? Are you now pursuing this hobby that you once had and you had to put it to the side because you were busy with life? And that's, I think, where we're kind of taking this. You also focus on wellness a lot, Lisa, in your radio show. And I'm excited for the book that's coming out. And I hope that people get the book. My love language is food when it comes out. And please keep us posted. And we will tell people how to reach you through our show notes. When it comes to the messy middle and this transitioning that people are doing right now and wellness, what do you talk about in the radio show when it comes to wellness and this group of people in midlife right now?
So I will say that I came to wellness because I was sort of a bird with the candle at both ends person. I worked a lot. I worked really hard. I played really hard, which left not a lot of time for rest, which I grew up under the adage, you rest when you're dead. This life is for living.
I've heard that.
Right. This life is for living. Let's get it done. Well, the body is a organic biological product that needs rest. Mm-hmm. We grew up differently. We grew up with incorrect information about food and what was healthy. My generation grew up with the food pyramid and cardio and be skinny and diet. Everything is a diet. And then, you learn so much that you're trying to unlearn everything wrong that you've learned. And you also learn that you are the experiment. That's what I've learned, especially in this book, where what works for someone else may not work for me. And I am the experiment. I'm the person who has to figure out what works for me. And I'm the only person who can do it. We can get tons of advice for everybody, even in business. Like when you were saying you wanted to put all of your experience so that you could package it and it could go somewhere. Part of the benefit of experience is sharing it.
Exactly.
So that someone else doesn't have to learn the exact lessons that you learn. We can learn from other people's lessons. And that's the same way with health. A 50-year-old woman who's going through menopause, who's doing this, who's having a problem that everyone is telling her she is either not having or is telling her to do some verbiage that is really great for athletic men. Like go stick yourself in an ice bath after fasting for 17 hours and only eat protein. And she's 40 pounds overweight and continues to be 40 pounds overweight while she's killing herself, practicing a protocol that really isn't built for her, for example. And what I think we talk about this on the radio show all the time, because a lot of it is unlearning or experimenting to find out what works well for us. And as a business owner who put my business in front of everything, including my health, there was a transition to how do I do this in a balanced way so that I don't burn out, that I don't get sick, that I'm here to do the work. I started looking at things differently.
I love the concept of unlearning. And I would love to just dive into that a little bit, because you're right. We typically become what we believe. And when the way that we've been eating, the way that we show up, when you get to a level of self-awareness where you realize this isn't working for me anymore, I don't feel good. When you go through the life changes, such as many of us in midlife are going through with menopause, this is something that I was not anticipating at all, Lisa. Like this has taking so many of us down to our knees. And this is not because we're not smart or accomplished or successful. It has nothing to do with that. It's all our body chemistry and our hormones just wreaking havoc within us. And from brain fog to exhaustion to your system not functioning fully because your hormones are off, it is a physiological transition and messy middle that we're going through. And we still have to show up and we still have client calls as we're having a hot flash. And I actually became very authentic about it. And I would joke. I would be like, okay, give me a second. I'm just having a hot flash right now. This room got really hot all of a sudden. And we would laugh about it. What I'm loving about that is that people are being more open about it. Now we're having real conversations. Everybody's hearing about it, men, women, and the like. And we no longer are hiding because nobody gave me the memo that this was coming. Now women talk about it much more. And Oprah had a whole show on hormones and menopause and all of that. So I'm glad that we are opening up about it, that we are able to have this tough conversations that could sometimes feel very vulnerable because there's also ageism, especially in if we're still working. And there is so much value in owning all of it and being authentic about the process, because I believe, just like with the book, we give others permission to be authentic when they see us owning what we're going through and the stage of life that we're in, and how that impacts our leadership and the way we live and the way we relax and the way we take care of ourselves. So I like going back to your concept of unlearning, that the number one job is to just identify what's not working for me. And how much of that has to do with what I've been doing all this time? And how can I reprogram myself to do what's right for me now based on the new knowledge that I have?
And based on a changing body. What worked for me at 25 does not work for me at 53. I also want to say that one more thing about this changing in this ageism is men also go through, it's not a menopause, but they also go through a slight change in their hormones. And I think it also is an opportunity for them to use that time period to see what is working and what is not working. Men are driven by protecting their family, going out and making money in the workforce. And when they have that subtle shift, it's very subtle in men. It's different because they can still father children until they're 80. Women, we have a hard stop. We're either having our babies or we're not having our babies. But there is a similar thing that goes on, that is a reevaluation period.
Tell me more, because I think you're speaking from experience.
Yes. So I was shocked. That was what was happening to my body. And I remember waking up one day and I was pointing to the shutters and I was saying to my spouse, the things on the side of the window. Now I'm a realtor.
Not the name.
Shutter was nowhere in my brain. I'd only been talking about it for 20 years.
Yeah.
Or longer. When I owned houses, I fixed shutters. So there was this panic of who am I without hormones? Because apparently I was not a person, I was a walking hormone. That's how it feels. The shift feels like, who am I now?
Right.
Who am I? And we're just now talking about it for women, but we don't really talk about it for men at all.
No.
And men also go through a period where their stuff is changing. And yeah, we joke that the olden days we used to call it a midlife crisis. Crisis is the wrong word, but I do feel like we use that word because the idea that we are changing is a crisis.
Maybe it's the disruption word that we used earlier. It's a midlife disruption.
It is. And we don't embrace getting older in our society. We put fillers in our face. We do everything we can not to age.
Absolutely.
So we don't embrace this role. So it's scary.
Yeah, and it's unknown. I think we talked about that at the beginning, where these transitions are so messy because there's so much unknown. And so let's talk about what's a misconception people have about the messy middle.
A misconception is that you will want to use the labels you've always used for yourself. So I actually have this conversation quite a lot, and someone had said to me that it's really important that they always ask, who am I?
Who am I?
And I said, it will be a really interesting question if you say, who am I without this? Because that leads you closer to the future. Who am I is current and past. I'm a real estate broker. I'm a wife. I'm a daughter. I'm a friend. I'm all of these labels, but that's not my future. I may not always be a daughter. My parents have passed, right? I may get divorced. I may not always be a wife. I may change careers. I may not be a real estate broker. So who am I? The ego is a thing, right? We're always wearing labels. Social media and always projecting ourselves into the future encourages us to fit into a box. Make a video that everyone else makes so you can climb and become viral. Say the things everybody else says because that's trending, right? But that's not our lives, like our real lives. If you start saying, who am I? And I did this for real estate when I was giving up the property management day-to-day piece, but wanting to keep the broker piece. I had to say, who am I if I'm not a property manager? What value do I bring to that space? Because I was using the value of my property management skills to bring value to my sales skills.
Yes.
Well, that was me getting 20 years of experience that I don't have to do every day because I already have the experience. Nothing changes about it. Same story. So who am I without this allowed me to have more space to figure out, maybe I'll be a radio show host. Maybe I'll be an author. Maybe I'll be a painter. Maybe I'll design a fashion line. Maybe.
Maybe I'll write a book.
Maybe I'll write a book. And then when you think of the ego as, for women, and this will be in some partially for men too, but we keep our essence of like sensuality or sexuality tied to a reproductive piece of it. But who am I without this? If I'm going to age a little bit more naturally and gracefully, what do I look like with wrinkles? Who am I without this flawless skin? Who am I without this hair? When you start getting to who am I without some of these labels, it's easier to get into what I find interesting because it removes the ego part of ourselves that wants to be a certain thing or project a certain thing. And it allows us to be, who am I? Who is the 6-year-old who didn't know and care? Having a little bit of that. And the misconception is that adults that were 50-year-old adults who had all the answers anyways, we didn't have the answers. 50% of the times we're scared out of our mind doing something. We still don't have all the answers. And our environment and our world changes so rapidly, we really don't have all the answers. And some of the best answers come from better questions, not the same question, but better questions. So some of the misconceptions in the transition is that I'm ending something that something beautiful doesn't come from opening a different door.
So there's an assumption we're making that the future won't be what it used to be, and it better not. Right? It better not. You're giving us a beautiful tool, Lisa, because this question, I'm going to challenge our audience members to answer this question. Who am I without my role? Who am I without this role at work specifically? Because so many of us, I'm speaking for myself, so many of us really identify with our work and who we are, the labels that we put on ourselves. I'm a transformational speaker. I'm a leadership coach, a career strategist, a leadership consultant. Like, those are the hats I wear every single day. So who am I without those who help me uncover what are other passions and joys that I have in this world that don't have to do with my work? And don't get me wrong, I do know what I enjoy, and I would love to bring more of it into my life intentionally without it feeling like I am giving up one thing to pick up the other one. It's more about what you and I spoke before we started, which is about integrating. How can I integrate my life so much more so that I'm not choosing between the things that bring me joy and wellness and health and what brings me money and financial stability and the ability to send my son to college and pay more than half for his tuition, all the things that I'm responsible for in addition to supporting myself. So I love that aspect of the answer you gave us. There's so much richness in what you share. So thank you for gifting us that gift today.
You're welcome. I'm glad you enjoyed it. And I was just thinking, when you ask these questions, it's not necessarily about dropping the thing that you had. You just might need to pick it up and look at it in a different way and bring something else to it to bring it together more fully. It's not always about ending something, even in a career. AI is coming into the picture. And what I love about AI is I love technology, but I love it in its place because life is still about people. I even think about this from the standpoint when you were talking earlier about your experiences. Sometimes the best products come from being a consumer, and sometimes the best answer comes from us being the end user. I like AI, but AI to me has its place because we are the AI. The AI is learning from us, not the other way around.
Right. It's learning us, not us learning them or it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right, so I think we're right at the place where we do our lightning round, Lisa. So, what would you tell your younger self as you started out in your business?
I would tell myself it's all going to work out and there's lots of ups and downs, and to hold steady and not panic at the down, that there is another up.
Always, right? This too shall pass.
This too shall pass.
And things always work out for us. That's one mindset shift that I've been using, and thank goodness I have it. What if you had no limitations, no constraints on your budget, your time, your resources? What project would you take on?
I would design a clothing line.
Ooh, tell me more about that.
I would design more sustainable, beautiful clothing for women as they age.
I love that. Isn't there a brand called the Grand American that was built basically based on that premise that mannequins were size fours and twos? When I forget her name, she's fabulous. But when she looked at the marketplace, she was like, we have a gap. We have these full, voluptuous women who are not being served by these brands. And she created the Great American brand, and the rest is history.
So I'm going to look her up. I've never heard of that brand. I was thinking more of things that are trending or stylish, but maybe look appropriate on a younger person. You know, how do you still bring trends and beautiful, feel like you're still stylish?
Yes.
You know, as you're transitioning.
Well, thank you for that, because I have seen the alternative. And let me tell you, I wonder sometimes if there were mirrors in that house. So I know that I'm being catty, but I'm doing it on purpose because
Yes.
You're right. I love to be stylish, chic. However, the things that you see in the stores, I'm like, I'm never going to wear that. I'm never going to wear the cleavage like that. I'm never going to wear pants like that. And so in a way, we look frumpy because we're conservative in how we dress. But you're right. I would love to be stylish and at the same time not try to pretend to be a 21-year-old, because I'm not. And I'm done with those days. Wow, Lisa, if you had to say one last message for our listeners who have been with us and who spend this time with us, what would that be?
I would say eat better, eat whole foods, vegetables. Don't worry about your protein. Most Americans get enough protein. Worry about fiber. That's what I would say. If anyone wants to care about a macro, care about your fiber. That can change your health pretty quickly, is by adding real fiber to your diet. I would say embrace being a beginner. We think we know everything as adults. We have to unlearn and embrace being a beginner. Go try a new sport, try a new class at the gym, try painting, go try ceramics, go try something that you use with your hands. Go take a cooking class, go learn about wine. Whatever you think may be interesting, go and do it. Don't be afraid to do it alone, because people might not have the same passions as you, but you will make new friends along the way.
What a beautiful advice you're giving us. Thank you so much, Lisa Parda, for gifting us your perspective today, for sharing the beautiful questions you share with us. I am definitely going to do the exercise on who am I without blank. And we invite all of you to also apply these questions and to eat well and take care of yourself, and know that while what we do is super important in our lives and is meaningful, that there is so much more to life than work. And I'm saying those words to myself, of course, and to you. And thank you for being with us today. And I can't wait for people to get their hands on your new book, My Love Language is Food, and for us to enjoy the recipes that you've included for us. Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you so much. I've been honored. Thank you.
And for those of you who were with us for this episode, join us again for the next one. In the meantime, lead with purpose, live with joy. We'll see you soon. If you enjoyed today's content, I appreciate your review so others can find us, and share it with your friends. And to stay in touch, join our community to receive valuable strategies and expert advice at drjeanniebarrow.com. See you soon.